Have you ever heard of a killer who demanded people play jazz music or be murdered in their sleep? Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? But this is no urban legend. This is the chilling true story of one of the most mysterious and terrifying serial killers in American history, a man known only as the Axeman of New Orleans. Between 1918 and 1919, the city of New Orleans was gripped by fear. A series of brutal attacks left families dead in their own homes, and the killer was never caught. He didn't just murder people, he invaded their homes, waited until they were asleep, and then struck with unbelievable violence. But what made this case even more terrifying wasn't just the bloodshed, it was a letter the killer sent to a local newspaper, claiming to be a demon who would spare anyone listening to jazz music on a specific night. And shockingly, the city listened. The horror began on May 23, 1918. Joseph and Catherine Maggio were a married couple living in a quiet neighborhood on Upper Line Street. Joseph owned a barber shop. They were a typical, hardworking couple, with no enemies and no trouble. But one morning, Joseph's brothers, Jake and Andrew, stopped by and discovered something horrifying. Joseph and Catherine had been attacked in their sleep. Their throats were slit with a straight razor, and their skulls had been crushed by an axe. Blood covered the walls and the bed. It was a scene out of a nightmare. What was even more disturbing was how the killer got in. There were no signs of forced entry. Instead, the killer had chiseled out a panel in the back door, removed it, and crawled through. It was silent, calculated, and cold. And then, he vanished without a trace. Nothing was stolen, money and valuables were left untouched. It was as if he came only to kill. The murder weapon? An axe taken from the couple's own home. The razor? From Joseph's own barber shop. He used their tools against them. The police were baffled. No leads, no motive. And sadly, no answers. Then, just a month later, it happened again. On June 27, 1918, Louis Bessumer and his mistress, Harriet Lowe, were attacked in the early hours of the morning. They lived behind a small grocery store. Again, the killer removed a door panel to get in. Again, he used an axe. Both victims were struck in the head. Louis survived, but Harriet later died from her injuries. Once again, nothing was stolen. And once again, the killer disappeared into the night. By this time, the city began to panic. Who was doing this? Why? And why was there no clue left behind? Weeks later, the killer struck again, this time at the home of Anna Schneider. She was 8 months pregnant, attacked in her bed, beaten in the face. Amazingly, she and her baby survived. The police had no leads, no fingerprints, no motive, just more fear. The next attack was even more shocking. In March 1919, the Cortimiglia family was targeted. Charles, his wife Rosie, and their 2-year-old daughter Mary were sleeping in their home when the axeman struck. Charles and Rosie were severely wounded. Little Mary didn't survive. The axe, once again, belonged to the family. By now, New Orleans was paralyzed by fear. People started sleeping in shifts. Others stayed up all night with shotguns, doors were reinforced, locks were doubled, anyone could be next. But no one expected what happened next. On March 13, 1919, the axeman sent a letter to the Times-Picayune, a local newspaper. It was published for the entire city to read. The letter was long, creepy, and full of disturbing language. The writer claimed to be a spirit, a demon from hell, and he mocked the police for failing to catch him. He said no one could stop him because he wasn't even human. But the scariest part was this: the axeman said that on the night of March 19th, at exactly 12:15 a.m., he would pass through New Orleans. And anyone who wasn't playing jazz music in their home that night would get the axe. Here's a quote from the letter. I am very fond of jazz music, and I swear by all the devils in the nether regions that every person shall be spared in whose home a jazz band is in full swing. It was as if the killer was daring the entire city to take him seriously. And they did. That night, jazz music filled every corner of New Orleans. Clubs were packed. Homes blasted phonographs, street performers played on corners. People danced in their homes out of fear, not celebration. It's said the entire city was alive with jazz, trying to ward off death itself. And that night, the Axeman didn't strike. That letter made the Axeman infamous. He wasn't just a killer anymore, he was a legend. But who was he? Theories exploded. Some believed he was targeting Italian immigrants, as many of the victims were Italian grocers. Others thought he was mentally ill, possibly a former soldier or butcher with violent tendencies. A few believed he really was a demon, given the supernatural language in his letter. There was one suspect who gained some attention, Joseph Mumford. He was a known criminal with connections to the mafia. One of the Axeman's surviving victims later shot and killed Mumford, claiming he was the killer. But the police couldn't prove it. There wasn't enough evidence. And even after Mumford's death, the identity of the Axeman remained a mystery. Some people believe there was more than one killer. Maybe copycats? Maybe different murderers with a similar style? The truth is, the crimes weren't always consistent. Some were more brutal than others, some used razors, others only axes. The timing was sporadic, the targets varied, that only deepened the mystery. By late 1919, the attacks stopped. Just like that, the Axeman was never seen again. No more letters, no more murders, just silence. And that silence only made the story more haunting. Over time, the Axeman of New Orleans became part of American folklore. His story inspired books, music, and even television shows. He was portrayed in American Horror Story, where his jazz-loving persona was taken to new fictional heights. But the real Axeman, the man, or monster, who terrorized New Orleans, was never unmasked. To this day, his case remains unsolved. No fingerprints, no confessions, no solid evidence. Just a trail of blood, a terrifying letter, and a night when an entire city played jazz to keep death away. So, what do you think? Was the Axeman a criminal genius who vanished without a trace? A disturbed man driven by delusions? Or something more, something evil? And the big question, if you were in New Orleans on that night in 1919, would you have played jazz? Let us know in the comments. Like this video if you enjoy deep dives into real-life mysteries. And don't forget to subscribe for more chilling stories from around the world. Stay safe out there. And remember, sometimes the scariest stories are the ones that are true.